How do you feel about Banksy?
I think Banksy is a mystery artist. Before 2019, before I got a call to move the Banksy wall, I had no idea who Banksy was. To my, I would say, lack of interest in street art at the time, I had absolutely no idea who Banksy was. But when I got the call to do this huge job, I went online and I saw like, wow, like this is a serious artist. And I started like reading about it, and I got to know more and more about who Banksy was, that like he's a mystery artist, nobody knows who he really is. And all this hype that was going around, you know, in Brooklyn at the time with this job that we did, I got to know that this is like, you know, we have to do this job. Like, so in the sense you're asking me who Banksy is, today, you know, Banksy to me is like an icon, because what he does is just simply amazing. The amount of influence that he brings, the social impact that he brings, I think he's one of the top artists of the 21st century. That's to, you know, make it short, who I think Banksy is.
And what do you feel about this job?
Well, the first time that we had to move the Banksy wall from Coney Island, where it was the Banksy seal, it was probably for me at the time, being new to art logistics field. I was just about a year in doing art logistics. This was the most challenging job that I had so far. I had to do so much in the sense that I had to hire engineers, consult with architects, work with professional steel fabricators, welders. I had to organize crew in order to move the actual wall, get different city permits. So to me, the actual job of moving that, you know, piece, in comparison, was like building a house. That's how challenging it was for me. And I was super excited because it was something out of the ordinary, not typical of what we do. We move paintings, we install chandeliers, we install exhibitions. This was something like one of a kind, and knowing, researching, knowing who Banksy was, I got super excited about the job. So I put like all my effort into this. You know, I've spent over a couple of months just, you know, thinking about this job, organizing, getting the right people, and basically being sort of a middleman, but in the sense that I had all the responsibility of getting the job right and delivering the project in a perfect way from point A to point B without any damages, in full conservation. It was like really, really top notch. So, you know, for me, this is like the pillar. At that time, after doing the Banksy job, I was like, oh wow, I can pretty much do any art logistics job.
How did you get the first job of relocating Banksy in 2019?
As far as I remember, I got a call from Mike Jane. Mike Jane was a director of this, I believe, construction company, and the question was, can we move a wall? I had no idea what wall it was, and we went to the site, we went to see the site, we went to first inspect, and then, only then we found out that this was a Banksy wall. Then, like I said, I learned who Banksy was, I did research, and I said to myself like, oh, I gotta take this project because this is like epic project that could, first of all, challenge me. Second of all, it's a social project. You know, I feel deeply about saving art, different types of art. You know, my father's an antique dealer. He had been saving art for decades. And, you know, I sort of felt like, you know, first of all, the piece was in Brooklyn. There was a lot of hype about it. It was Coney Island. I grew up on Coney Island. I grew up in Brooklyn. There were so many people around that piece at the time, like taking photographs, publishing it on Instagram, Facebook, like it was all over. And I was like, you know, I really had to do this job. And the challenge was how to organize everything, you know? So I sort of got lucky because, you know, I met good people on the way. I met right engineer who gave me confidence, who told me how to do this job right, how to calculate, how to do the plans, and they pretty much satisfied all the requirements to transport the piece safely from point A to point B. Then I also had the confidence from conservation point because my father, he's a conservator of art for many years. He's been saving murals, he's been saving paintings, so he knew how to properly not just lift the wall but how to protect the actual painting part, like call it fresco. It's not really fresco, it's a regular balloon paint, I would say, but at the same time you have to protect it the right way with like foam, with proper wood, sustain it so that when it moves it doesn't just crack and fall off. So basically I had the right support from all the people around me to give me the confidence and to be able to provide the quality job. And this was like in 2019, it's already like, 5 years back. I'm just trying to go back, and because it was like really my first big job. And I guess the biggest challenge for me was just to agree, because they contacted a lot of people, the company. Banksy came, he just painted over. They wanted to save the piece, they didn't know the value, they didn't know what it was. They just wanted to save it. Their objective was, oh, this is something super valuable, we have to save it. They had like a fence built around it. They had 24/7 security there. And it was like a lot of like tension, I remember, because they needed to do it fast. They were afraid somebody could vandalize it. They had like 24/7 security guard there. They also had like insurance issues because there was like hundreds of people going there just taking pictures, and they were afraid like somebody could fall, could get hurt, so they needed to move it fast. And it was up to me to organize the whole process, to move the wall. Thinking about it, for me, the most part where I felt tension was at the end, when they cut the wall, when they put the steel, and then when the crane came and he lifted it. It's like a huge five-ton wall. So at that time I was like shaking because I was looking at the wall, and it's literally, you have to like lift the wall, 5-10 meters up in order to put it on the truck. And I was like, oh shit, God forbid it like falls and breaks or cracks. Like I felt really like scared at the time, but I trusted the people that worked for me, and I felt that all the calculations were done right because they measured the weight of the wall, they measured the thickness, they estimated like what type of steel needs to be done. And later those people became my partners into doing a lot of other serious jobs. It's one of like the best steel company in Brooklyn. They're called Chesaco.
Your Banksy relocation in 2019 is really impressive. What was the most complicated part of this job?
Most complicated part, I would say, was the preparation, was getting the right team, getting the right people, doing all the measurements, doing the pre-work. Once the pre-work was done, the rest was pretty much an outline of how many days it would take, how many men it would take. It was just all planned. So I would say the planning was probably the most tense part, where you sort of feel worried because you're doing it for the first time. At the same time, you're doing it with the right people, so you feel confident that they're gonna do the right job. So it was kind of that, the preparation part.
How did you get the offer in 2024?
2024 was a very famous mural from the Bronx. It's called Ghetto for Life. And that piece was there for like 10 years. It was an iconic piece. It was like part of the neighborhood. It was done by Banksy, like I said, about 10 years ago. And they, from what I believe, they wanted to move it, they wanted to save it. They offered to donate the piece to like many museums, including like PS1, which is like, you know, famous world museum for contemporary art, and everybody denied it. Like nobody wanted to accept the work for whatever reason. I have no idea. I'm a strong believer that whatever street art there is, it should be saved. It's a great way to conserve our present history. You know, if you save street art, you sort of like captivate the time when it was done instead of like having it disappear despite whatever philosophy other people have. I'm a strong believer that street art should be saved as much as possible. So from what I understand, these people, they tried to save this mural, but nobody wanted to accept it, nobody wanted to buy it, and whoever, you know, contracted us, these people, they decided to move the wall to a safe location in Connecticut. And in my opinion, this is like greatest decision that they made, because this is an iconic piece. Like to that neighborhood, that piece is basically, I don't know what to compare it like to. What kind of art wouldn't go as far as like the bull sculpture in Wall Street, because that piece was specifically made and it was installed officially. This is an unofficial graffiti or street art, but it became part of the neighborhood. Once it became part of the neighborhood, it's part of the history that goes on there. So to me, saving that wall was very important. I'm glad that people who did it, you know, made the right decision. There was a lot of criticism around it. I believe they contacted us like first time as early as like 2023, maybe in November, maybe in October. And, you know, at that time, I was already confident that we could do the job because we did it once. So there's no reason why we can't do it another. We already had the requirements. We knew all the tactics, how to, you know, move the wall. I moved the wall before, I knew I could move the wall again. And then finally, I think they contacted us like in January or in December. And that's it. We started, you know, doing the same thing. Preparation, it was way bigger than before. It was like twice the size. So it needed more men, more material. But at the end of the day, you know, it was, you know, same tactics. So same way we did it before, we moved the wall in 2024.
Does street art need conservation?
I'm a strong believer that if the art becomes part of the neighborhood, that if it's not just like a vandalized graffiti, if it's really something that's socially impactful, that's part of culture, that's part of history, that's part of the people that live in the area or live in the city, I believe that conserving that type of art, you're basically conserving that part of history. Wherever that piece ends up being, maybe it's gonna end up in a museum someday, maybe it's gonna end up in a private collection, but wherever it ends up, people could publish it, people could display it. It's always gonna be part of that time, of that place, of that neighborhood. It's always going to be related to that particular frame of time. And I think it's important because just like they saved, you know, medieval frescoes, just like they saved, you know, art that was made in ancient times, this is our time. We could save it on Instagram, but then it just becomes virtual. So you destroy the physical art, or whatever, you just have the virtual art, but then you have no attachment to the actual piece, you have no attachment to how it was, and to me that's kind of sad. You know, I believe street art should be saved. I'm a firm believer of that.
I agree with you.
Mixed feeling. As I said before, I strongly believe that it should be done as much as possible. It's costly. People who do that, lots of respect to them because they spend their money. Most likely they will never get that money back because street art is not a painting, it's not a small sculpture that you could transport easily. There's like, you know, judging by what we did, there's so much work to be done and the work is very costly that to sell something like that later on for profit, it's hard. Not many people want to buy these really big pieces, so they become like museum level installations, museum level exhibits. From what I understand, museums don't really want to take them because there's this issue between street art, conserved versus it should be on the street. So there's a lot of controversy in that sense. But my feeling is lots of respect to the people who do that because they take a huge risk. They spend their money, they invest their money, it's their own initiative, they're doing this historical event, they're saving this art wherever it's going to be displayed. There's no guarantee that they will ever get this investment back, if you consider that as an investment. So in my opinion, if it was up to me, I would be thinking that this should be like an initiative of like funds or of the city or whatever to have these pieces conserved. So yes, they should be saved. If they need to be relocated to like street art park or something, from what I understand, there's a lot of them being developed right now. But yes, I think there should be more initiatives, you know, like countrywide, worldwide, where people will invest money into conserving street art. And yeah, relocating is very costly, so private initiative, I think, is not enough. As an investment, I think it's a very risky investment because pieces are huge. There's not many buyers that would be willing to just buy them because there's not a lot of places where you could store them. So there's many controversies in that sense. But my personal feeling is I feel there should be more initiative in terms of saving them.
Today, the well-known company Final Shippers successfully completed a highly significant and challenging project. They managed to transport a very large wall that features intricate and famous graffiti artwork created by the renowned artist Banksy. The building on which the wall was painted several years ago is located in South Bronx, which is known for its vibrant community and rich history. It is specifically intended for demolition, and the owner approached us with the task of cutting out the wall and transporting the structure safely and securely to its new location in Connecticut from South Bronx. Together with the company Chisacle, with which we are working on similar projects, this is already the third project of our company for transporting walls, and we have successfully completed the task. And we are very glad that this particular item will be available for public viewing and will not be destroyed. It is extremely important.
Duveen Publishers has released the most comprehensive Raisonné catalog of Banksy's work to date. Fine Art Shippers is also represented in this catalog with photos of two of our Banksy mural relocation works.